YouTube, once again, has changed policies that will further stifle gun content creators. We've seen this before, but this is worse than normal. This time, it could kill the entire gun industry. And that has brought the attention of some of the biggest tech YouTubers that could help us potentially fight back. Let me explain. To understand the phrase death by 1,000 paper cuts, all you have to do is look at the progression of YouTube's policies on firearms content. Over the last decade plus that I've been on the platform, YouTube has gone from it's okay to show virtually anything to now you can't even mention how many rounds are in the magazine, or even worse yet, insinuate that a gun company has a website without fear of getting the dreaded channel strike or even worse, channel deletion. Recently, YouTube shifted their policies, yet again, of course, noting that after June 18th, certain content showing how to remove safety devices will be prohibited. Content showing the use of homemade firearms, automatic firearms, and certain firearm accessories will be age restricted. Those things are undefined. This completely kills the entire category of legal 3D printed and homemade firearms for personal use, which is currently 100% legal in the US. However, it gets worse. Almost immediately after a certain political figure had an attempt on his life, YouTube reached out to Hitcock45, one of the biggest and longest running gun channels, and what they learned scared the shit out of all of us. The initial report was that all sponsorships on firearms channels were now dead, but that quickly got walked back to the policy as we now understand it. Gun content creators are no longer able to call out gun-related sponsor websites through text or verbally in videos. On top of that, as I understand it, if you even so much as use language that could lead someone to believe that you're referencing a website that sells guns or gun accessories, or mention a promo code, that could lead to your video getting deleted, or worse yet, a channel strike. This is how I understand it after speaking directly with Jon from Hitcock45. But that's not even the biggest issue here. This policy that we're discussing doesn't exist in writing anywhere. This is what's being told to big-time creators in backdoor meetings. So we can't even fully understand what is or is not acceptable, and the term gray area doesn't even do this justice. It was bad enough when YouTube killed the ability to link to gun-related websites in the description of videos, but now we're being forced to be ultra vague if we want to maintain any kind of sponsorships or do this for a living. Like, the industry as a whole will not be able to be sustained without this. This kills the ability for brands to track anything or figure out how to grow their brand because calls to action are now illegal on the platform. To be very clear, to be real clear about this, my channel, this channel, has had that type of promotion in 99% of our videos for the last 9 years. Not only that, but quite often, me simply mentioning the price of a given gun has been construed by YouTube as promoting the sale of guns, which is utter nonsense because half the time I'm talking shit about how expensive it is. On top of that, the term firearm accessory is not defined anywhere, so we don't know what is or is not included in that portion of the rules. Again, none of this stuff about sponsorship is on their firearms policy page at all. This unwritten policy will quite literally kill the gun collective. And this is where the tech channels come into play. After the Hitcock45 video went viral, Louis Rossman, a tech tuber that fought really hard for right to repair laws, put out a video covering the issue, partially titled, "YouTube is intent on destroying itself," even claiming in that video that he very much supports the 2A. Louis quite literally put years of his life into fighting for the right of people to repair their own electronics, and now he is openly and thankfully showing support for gun content creators and the 2A. Louis has over 2 million subscribers on YouTube and a fan base that trusts him deeply. He is tenacious, and having him on our side is very encouraging. And more recently, Linus and Luke from Linus Tech Tips /Floatplane recently discussed this issue that we're talking about here on their weekly live podcast, I guess you could call it, called The WAN Show. During their talk about what gun content creators should be doing, they mentioned that every attempt to make a gun tube has fallen short. I've talked about that issue on TGC many times before. And the core of their talk is that basically you can't beat the juggernaut that is YouTube in terms of potential viewership. It's very expensive and it will take decades to do it. They brought up that this is essentially a free speech issue at its core, and I agree. They also mentioned that both this channel and Forgotten Weapons have a home on their platform called Floatplane, which is essentially, as Luke put it, a video-focused Patreon competitor. When I thanked those guys for bringing this issue to light on Twitter, Linus said that he's not necessarily a huge gun guy, but he is a free speech guy, stating that Floatplane will always be a place where legal content, including guns, can be monetized. Now, LTT currently has over 15 million subscribers. Their support on this issue is a big deal. This is a huge deal. I'm also a big fan of LTT and have taken inspiration from them since the inception of TGC, so to see them supporting us in this way is a big deal for me personally. Lewis, Linus, Luke, thank you guys for giving a shit about this. I'm happy to talk to or travel to any of you to discuss this and find ways that we can work together to push back. My channel is not huge, so having support from guys like you is a big deal. The question remains, what do we as gun channels do about this? How do we push back? This is where things start to fall apart, unfortunately. Everyone in the space seems to sort of have their own plan. For TGC, we are on Floatplane, like I mentioned. We post there all the time. It's always ad-free content. You can go support us there directly if you want. And we're also on Rumble now. Others have tried their own apps and websites, but I'm skeptical that any of it will truly succeed. It hasn't yet. Like rats on a sinking ship we are, just scattering. These solutions are partial solutions at best. To really win the battle here, we need to make a lot of noise and let YouTube know what we think. Like a load of noise. So please, anywhere that you have a public platform, tell YouTube that these smoke and mirrors, ultra vague, ever-changing policies are just not acceptable. Tell YouTube that education and entertainment centered around our Second Amendment right should not be stifled. If they take down the gun community, imagine what they could do. Imagine what could happen if they decided they didn't like the tech community suddenly, or some other entirely legal segment of the creator space. For them to just decide they don't like something and push it out of existence is a huge problem. This is really bad, and it just cannot stand.